AM 1460, the new WXBR. You are listening to the Metro South Morning Show. Peter Czymbor and Mike Pava here with you on this Wednesday morning. Joining me now via the telephone is the producer of the first ever authorized biographical motion picture about Brockton's own former heavyweight champion, Rocky Marciano. We have not spoken to him on the airwaves in 6 years. He joins us now, Morris Levy. Morris, good morning.
Good morning, Peter. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, Morris. It's been 6 years since we've spoken to you on the airwaves. It's been 6 years since this biographical motion picture was first announced as being a project. What's been going on the past 6 years?
God, it seems like yesterday, but it's been a little bit of back and forth. We've had a couple of scripts written over the years that were not quite up to par, and sometimes in the development of a major motion picture, there's a lot of moving parts that have to come together, and if they don't, it takes a while. And in this case, there were two scripts, like I said, that were not up to par to where we thought they would be, and we have moved on since, and we made some good headways in about the past 6 months, which I'd be happy to tell you about.
Tell us all about it. What's been going on the past 6 months? 6 years to 6 months, Morris.
Yes, well, I haven't stopped working on the project. Neither has Lou Marciano or anybody involved, but we've got a pretty sizable development company out of Los Angeles that now has come on the project that has committed a significant amount of dollars to bring on a writer, which is a good thing for us. So we finally settled on a writer between us and Marciano's and the development company, and now what we're trying to do is attach a pretty strong director to the project. Once we attach a director that's approved by this development company with the writer, then the development company will, handle all the contracts and the chain of titles, and start paying the writer, and then really starts moving in a quick and correct direction.
Once again, we're chatting with Morris Levy here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, producer of the first ever family-authorized biopic about Rocky Marciano. Morris, when we did speak to you 6 years ago, we almost simultaneously spoke with a woman named Terry Apple, who at the time was the screenwriter for this project. It's my understanding, based on what you just said, she is no more in regards to screenwriter for this project?
Yeah, she's a good lady. She really worked diligently with Lou Marciano, and she did a couple of passes. She was great in every which way, but the script that she had done was I guess too autobiographical, and it really didn't work. And it wasn't I guess a powerful enough script to get financing from the studios. So we had to move on to another writer in the interim. She was wonderful in every capacity. It just didn't get us there to where we needed to get to get a green light from the majors and the mini majors.
And you mentioned Lou Marciano being heavily involved in the screenwriting. Lou Marciano, of course, being Rocky Marciano's brother. He's very hands-on in this project, along with you and the screenwriter, correct?
Yeah. Lou, a lot of the great anecdotes and things like that have come from Lou, and Lou's been really instrumental in getting us to know Rocky as the man more than the boxer, because Lou, being his younger brother, really had spent a lot of time with Rocky. He roomed with him in the house in Brockton. He sparred with him, traveled with him. So Lou, I think probably knew him better than anybody as a man. We're very familiar who he was as a fighter. So Lou's been very instrumental.
We mentioned that the screenwriter we initially spoke to in relation to this project is no longer affiliated with it. Do you have a screenwriter for this project?
Well, yeah. We actually moved on to another screenwriter who had done some great projects. His name was Mark Wheaton, and he had written the last reboot to Friday the 13th and some big films, and he had written a great treatment that we had all loved. And then when we got the script, it wasn't quite on the same wavelength as the treatment that we had approved. It wasn't a bad script, but wasn't where we wanted to be from where he wrote the treatment. So, we had moved on from that and from him. And then I'd spoken to a couple of development companies because I really wanted to raise a good amount of money and really get a writer on they can stick their teeth into the project and pay some money, some bigger money than we're used to. And we got a development company on that committed to us. We chose a writer and that we liked, and we just got to get a director. Once we get a director that they approve with the writer, then we're off to the races.
Is there anyone you have in mind in terms of Hollywood directors to be involved in this project?
We've gotten thrown between the major agencies like the CAAs, the ICMs, the WMEs, the resolutions. We've been thrown at everybody from Gary Ross, who did Seabiscuit, to Paul Haggis, who did Crash, to Nick Cassavetes, to Tim Robbins. So we have a list of names coming to us. In the past, we've looked at directors like William Friedkin, who did The French Connection, The Exorcist, and people like that. But now the new list with those names I just told you has been thrown at us. So we're going to wait for about another week or so till they finalize those lists, and we'll go out to one of those directors.
Once again, we're chatting with Morris Levy here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, producer of the Rocky Marciano biopic, which is in the works. Morris, of course, you have to take baby steps, screenwriter, director, but I think the obvious question that a lot of people will want to know is, who do you guys have in mind to actually play the character of Rocky Marciano?
It's interesting that you say that, because originally I'd liked Eric Bana, who's an Australian actor who played the Incredible Hulk, one of the Incredible Hulks. He also is in a lot of big films. He's well known. He was in Troy with opposite Brad Pitt. And now the talk has been on, like a Jake Gyllenhaal, actually WME, which is the William Morris agency, had brought his name up to me as far as directing, and he's somebody that we thought had a look also of Rocky and sort of his build, and he's a wonderful actor. And it's funny, I just got thrown for the second time another name, a guy named Tom Hardy, who is one of the young superstars in Hollywood, and he's a very much a rugged look like Rocky. So that one just got thrown at me too. So, and of course Matt Damon has been thrown around in the mix also. So those are the four names that we've been looking at in the past.
You mentioned that you hope to have a director within the next week or so. Is it safe to say that as soon as you have the screenwriter and director set, that's when you'll go after casting the main characters?
Yeah, well, the director will have lists. Hopefully within the next week or so, we'll have lists from the different Hollywood agencies that will give us some directors that they think are interested in the project. We'll have the list. From that list, we'll have to approve it with the development company, and then once we get an approval, we'll go back out to the agency to go to a certain director, and then once that director comes aboard, then we'll move forward. So we're going to get the list hopefully within a week or two. Then we have to pick from that list that we approve. And then the agency has to go out to that director and get them aboard.
I know everything is still very much in the works in relation to this project, but outside of Rocky Marciano himself, what characters surrounding him do you think will be a focal point of this movie?
Well, I think definitely Ali Colombo, who was his best friend, was in his corner, was his original manager / trainer before Charlie Goldman came on. He was definitely a focal point of his life, and I would think would be a focal point of the film. Of course, Al Weil, his manager, throughout his career, Charlie Goldman, his trainer throughout his career, will definitely be focal points in the film. And as far as the female character, I'm sure his wife and I'm sure his mother, who was important in his life, will be some of the female characters that will be portrayed.
We're chatting with Morris Levy here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, about the Rocky Marciano biopic project. Morris, I keep referring to it as the Rocky Marciano biopic project. Is there actually a name for what this movie is going to be called?
You know what? We had liked the name Undefeated, because of course Rocky was the only heavyweight champion to retire undefeated. But it could be changed at any time. And will the film be a film from his childhood all the way through his death? Or will it be a film where it will be a certain point of his life that will be the focal point of the film, like they had done with Lincoln, which was about a 6-month period in his life, what they did with the Hitchcock movie, which was also a certain point of his life, or will it that we're deciding which way, the screenwriter is deciding which way to go on it. But the title right now is unofficially Undefeated.
We mentioned at the top of this interview that it's been 6 years since we've spoken to you here on the airwaves, and it's been 6 years since this project has been announced. Within those past 6 years, one major movie about a Massachusetts-based boxer was The Fighter, about Mickey Ward. Now, Mickey Ward, clearly not a fighter on the caliber of Rocky Marciano, but a very, very good story and a good movie done by Mark Wahlberg, Christian Bale, and company. Did the success of that movie hinder you guys from getting started sooner on this project, or did it actually help you guys because boxing movies are in again?
That's a good question on both ends. It worked on both ways. funny because I had spoken, Mark Wahlberg's manager is a friend of mine, and I had been speaking to him on this project for a while now. That Mickey Ward film was in development for 6 months at Paramount, and they had a bunch of scripts. I mean, they had big directors and writers attached to it, and they kept moving on from them constantly. And the film took 6 years to get going. So those 6 years that I wanted Wahlberg to look at it, he couldn't really look at another boxing film because he was already attached to the Mickey Ward story. So that hurt us in that way. And like I said, his manager was a friend of mine, and I was keeping him abreast of what was going on with us, and vice versa, he was doing that with me. And I really believe if that film hadn't gone, or he wasn't attached to Ward's story originally, it would have been a good thing for us. So in that sense, it hurt. Where it helped is if you make a boxing film at a certain price, it shows that there's a certain business out there for it. So if you look at The Fighter, which is Ward's story, and Rocky Balboa, the last Rocky film, they were made probably in the mid-20 millions, and they generated about $150 million overseas. So it does show that if a boxing film is made at a certain price, there's a good amount of money to be made. So that was a positive first there in that film.
Morris, what made you want to get involved in this project?
Well, I'm a boxing fan, and whether you're a boxing fan or a sports fan, who doesn't admire, the career of Rocky Marciano? So when it came to me, of course, I was intrigued, and when I researched it more and more, and I became more excited about the project, and I think it would be a great story to get over, to film. It needs to be told. I think it's the next great boxing film.
We've mentioned the movies The Fighter, and you mentioned Rocky during the course of this interview. You take a look at other boxing movies that have had success, whether it be critical or commercial, such as $1 Million Baby, Cinderella Man, Raging Bull. What is it about the sport of boxing that translates so well to Hollywood?
It's a very good question, and you know what? I would think that you look at a lot of boxer stories. Even if you're not a boxing fan, there's so much of an element and of surprise and also an element of something that people might not be familiar. You look at Raging Bull, and yeah, it was a story about a boxer, but his life was so intriguing. Whether it was a great life or not. If you look at somebody up there likes me, Rocky Marciano, the story of the man itself. So if you look at a lot of the boxing films, the films really portray a lot of what's very interesting in the characters. So a lot of the fighters have been great characters. Also, boxing is an international sport, so it does translate well overseas. So between the actual story of the fighters that they're making films on, which is very interesting, plus the appeal, overseas with boxing, I think it breeds success. It really does.
Once again, we're chatting with Morris Levy here on AM 1460, the new WXBR producer of what at the moment is titled Undefeated, a biographical motion picture in the works about Rocky Marciano. Morris, when do you guys think that you guys will start shooting this film?
It's such a tough question. A lot of the stuff I do is independent movies, so meaning is I do films outside the studio system where I put private equity together and I make the film, and then I go out and sell it after I make it. This is a different story. It's hard to predict. If I was doing it independently, I could say, you know what, Peter, this is when I want to shoot it, and here's where I'm going to shoot it because I'm controlling it. This is different. It's a bigger budget, and we're sort of at the beholden to the bigger film companies here. So it really is a process, and we have to get a good script written first. Once that's done, and you get a director on board and an actor, then we go and we shop it around to the majors or the mini majors. The mini majors being like a Fox Searchlight, Legendary Pictures, Relativity Pictures. The majors being, for example, Sony, Paramount, Universal, Warner's. That's what we have to do. So it's a process here. We can't just make the film because we don't have the money. We're beholden to the studios, and we need to bring them a package. And so it's hard to really. Look, in the best case scenario, we'd love to shoot it in 2014. But, if I told you we'd definitely be doing it, I'd be lying to you.
Just so our listeners have some reference to the work you do, what are some other motion pictures or some other film work that our listeners may be familiar with that you've been involved with?
Well, I just finished a film called Seduced and Abandoned, which is going to premiere on HBO end of October with Alec Baldwin. I also have done a film called The 10, which is a pretty good comedy. It was with Paul Rudd and Winona Ryder, Jessica Alba, and a host of others. I did a thriller called Descent that we got some good good business and publicity on. So I've done a number of projects, and so hopefully this is the next good one for me.
And you mentioned that you produced a movie that is going to be premiering on HBO in the fall. The game plan for this Rocky Marciano biopic is a major motion picture release in theaters, correct? Or is it possible
correct.
It goes to TV?
Yeah, that's correct. We definitely want a theatrical. I mean, I think in 1999, I could be wrong, they had done an unauthorized picture on Rocky that was starring Jon Favreau, who's also a pretty big Hollywood director, on Showtime. It was a Showtime movie. And again, it was unauthorized, and it was done a while ago. So, yes, we don't want it to be a cable movie, although cable's wonderful. I mean, Showtime and HBO and Starz have done some great stuff. So our first goal would probably to get it out theatrically.
And two of those three networks you mentioned, HBO and Showtime, also very friendly to the sport of boxing, which I guess could translate well to this movie.
I agree. Look, if HBO or Showtime or one of the big cable guys came to us, of course we'd listen. I mean, their content is phenomenal, and any movie I made or I plan to make, I would love to be part of one of those networks from the get-go. So we wouldn't be against that at all. We would probably love it, but right now we're focusing on theatrical, and if that comes to play, we definitely listen. We definitely be interested.
Once again, we're chatting with Morris Levy here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, producer of an upcoming biopic that will be in production about the life of Rocky Marciano. Morris, before I let you go, the locals would kill me if I did not ask you, is this movie going to be shot at all in Brockton and surrounding communities?
I think it's so important. I'm from Great Neck in New York, and I try to shoot a lot of my films there because I'm a member of the community. And Alan King, who's a famous comedian and a friend of mine, shot some stuff in Great Neck, and I would love the film to have some scenes in Brockton. One, because it should be done. Two, is the people in the town should get to experience it and be a part of it. So I definitely, if I had my say, it would definitely be done there. And once we do get it done, that'll be suggested very, very strongly on my end. I definitely think there should be some days shot there for the community. No questions asked.
Our studio is literally located blocks away from Rocky's childhood home, so if you stop here, Morris, we'll be personally offended if you don't show up and say hi.
I will. I will, and I do have to get up there, and it's a great town. You've had some great people from there, and besides the Red Sox, you have a great state.
That's Morris Levy joining us here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. Morris, any final words for our listeners before I let you go this morning?
Yes, that comment was only made because I'm a very big Yankee fan. But that's the only reason why I do admire the Red Sox, but I'm a Yankee fan. No, just hang with us. We are working hard. We're working diligently. We want to make the best film possible. So, hang in there, and we're trying our best to get it done. And I want to thank Lou Marciano and the entire Marciano family for their patience and belief in the project. So I just want to thank the whole entire family. They've been great.
Well, we'll stay in touch, and hopefully as more news develops, we can break it first here on WXBR. Morris, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, and thanks for your time, Peter.
That's Morris Levy joining us here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. We'll step aside for a quick break. When we return, Mike Pava joins us from the WXBR newsroom.